back to the Tailosive Tech Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I was just speaking with Nick after last week's episode, and I know he is deeply sorry and wants to apologize, and said that if he ever does some kind of bass boosting thing again, he wants you to tag his Twitter account repeatedly, multiple times, with pictures of his least favorite people on the internet. So make sure to do that. How are you guys doing this week? Mm-hmm. The world is still on fire, but here we are talking about Apple products. And I had a couple of thoughts to share with you guys because I know Nick has not been on Twitter.
I have not.
But I need to pick your brain on this subject because, as we know, probably the big talk of the town right now, the most exciting thing, no, it's not the new iPhone.
AirPower came out? No way! I leave for 2 weeks,
out.
and AirPower comes out. What on earth?
I know. That's what happens every single time. But Pixel's back from the dead and selling like crazy. But when it comes to Apple Silicon coming to the Mac, we know how Apple is handled with their own processors in the iPads. You know how we have the same CPU in the 11-inch iPad Pros, the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. Do you guys think with Apple bringing their own silicon to the MacBooks, will they start making the only differences between laptops the size and not really much else performance? Or do you think that larger Macs will still get some type of GPU exclusive from Apple? Or will they give a higher-end CPUs for the 16-inch ARM Mac versus the 13-inch ARM Mac? Or how do you think they're going to handle it?
That's a good question.
I don't know.
I've put some thought into that. I haven't never put any thought into that, but I just put some thought into that right now. Is there external reason why they made the external not the external, but the bigger size Macs have exclusive features, or was that just because Apple's marketing and upselling it?
You have more room for power and fans and stuff in a larger screen device.
So there is a reason. So you're saying there's a reason why?
I mean,
that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a reason why the 15-inch has more
I don't believe you.
I
wasn't convinced by that. Yeah, is it because Windows PCs found a way to make it work on the same size, or is there some? Because here's my thing: if there's a marketing reason, then they won't change course. But if there was an actual hardware reason, then even if it's just space of it, then I can see them doing the same thing what they've been doing with iPhones and iPads and everything else, because at that point it's a preference. And I think if you were to make the argument that some people, like if we put it across the board for all the Macs, I think the argument could be made that some people would still prefer the larger screen because they're video editors and blah 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 blah. And there are
just a preference.
It's a preference thing. People like the bigger, just like iPhones and stuff like that. They want to see things better. It's good for pro applications across the board, and then you can also not have to compromise for people who like portability on the smaller ones. So I would like to see it that way, unless there was. So if it was a hardware limitation of sorts, even if it's size, then okay, there you go. So there it is. But if it's a marketing thing, then that would suck.
Yes.
Then you're in the same dilemma of like what I'm trying to figure out when it comes to the iPhones later this year.
Right. Do you go for the larger size because it enables certain things, or just for the larger size alone? What do you think, Nick?
Well, this is a really good question, because initially I thought one thing, but now that I think about it now, I'm thinking a different thing. So let me tell you the first thing I thought of.
Okay.
I was like, well, obviously, if there's a larger Mac, they'll have room for more thermals, they can pack more processor in there. My initial thought was maybe they'll have maybe it's not an A line, I don't know, Apple Silicon Chip 14, whatever the chip is that's going in here.
Yeah.
They'll have one of those, and that'll be like an i5 equivalent processor that has like zero thermal needs, and it's just like super powerful, and it's just one little chip. Yeah, but what if they have 2 or 4 of those in a Mac, and they synchronize them in series? And that would require some thermals, maybe a fan, and some, more RAM and more battery, and so that was kind of my initial thought. Like, yeah, they'd want to separate those two a little bit more. But now that Randy said like that, it makes a lot of sense that they just have all of the Macs be equally powerful, because Apple's into simplicity, right? When you go to order an iPad, it's like, which one do you want, the big one or the small one? It's not, do you
Yeah.
want the one with the A10X or the A11 or the A12?
And they both have the same storage options too.
Exactly.
Same RAM.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Uh-huh. Well,
I don't know.
The new ones have more RAM, so.
To play devil's advocate, I don't know if they'll treat it the same way as the iPads or the phones. I feel like maybe because people are accustomed to buying Macs more for their specs and more for their, there's so much configuration that goes on in the Mac lineup that doesn't go on in the iPad lineup. I guess it depends on the performance gains they're able to get out of their own custom processors. If there's a way that they can be like, okay, maybe on the smaller MacBooks, we can get away with a fanless, silent design with iPad Pro-like chips and iPad Pro-like performance. And then maybe with something like the 16-inch MacBook Pro, we'll keep the fans so that we can run the CPU at higher speeds and get more performance gains. And that way there's still that justification aside from screen real estate. But I don't really know how they're going to handle it. I mean, I've seen some people say that they're still going to keep fans around for certain Macs. And other people say, well, look at the performance gains they got out of the iPad Pro, and that thing's super thin. It doesn't have fans. Maybe all Apple Silicon will be fanless. But I don't know how that would handle on the Mac Pro, especially a giant tower like that.
They've already done a fanless Mac before. The 12-inch MacBook was a Core M, I believe, processor that didn't need a fan.
It was not great performance-wise, but design-wise, it was fantastic.
For anything I ever needed it to do, it was fine. But there were some times that I bumped up at the limit of its capabilities.
Didn't the Mac Cube have no fans?
Ooh, the G3?
I don't remember.
The actual
You'll have to
cube.
look that up.
Andy.
The
I think you're right.
the perfectly squared. The last time Steve Jobs went so far to design, because he's obsessed with cubes, that
Oh yeah, I'm
made
all
him
over
and
the cube life.
him and Johnny made this perfectly, in dimensions. That was their passion project, and that thing performed terribly after the success of the iMac. When you had the little iMac cube looking, design, and all that was like, oh, these are great. We can't wait. And I don't remember if it came before or after the sunflower design with the iMac that I was moving to. But
It was just before the sunflower design. It does have a fan. At least it has fan vents. I don't know if there's a fan inside. It doesn't. say on
I remember
Wikipedia.
having a vent because they were saying, oh, the air will go through.
But there's like a vent on the top.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
it did have a
but
fan still.
all that to say that
it did have one fan.
Where I
Unlike
was
us,
going
we have
at,
like 1,200 of them.
okay. Forget what I had to say. Rude.
See, guys, I haven't been on the
ahead,
internet
Red. Go
for like
ahead.
a whole week now. I'm like getting it all out.
I can see. Where I was getting at with it is that Apple, historically, when they tried to cut back on fans, it's always been a problem. But what they all had in common was that there is external power being given to it. And then when we saw what was going on with iPads and iPhones and stuff like that, and you see that there's no fans in them and they're working, now it's like, okay, so this is something that is possible, and I maybe blindly with the Apple bias blame the Intel and all the just external components going on in there, because if they're able to make it work with there, I don't understand. I don't see a reason why they wouldn't cause. I don't see why there would be an issue just moving to the Mac, because with a bigger footprint to work with, you can mediate or at least alleviate some of the stressors, because sometimes my iPad gets a little hot when I'm doing video editing on things. Sometimes I can feel it. Okay, that's the thing, but it's still way smaller than a MacBook, and Apple
It's
wins.
silent.
Yeah, Apple wins 2 times, because one, not only with all the internals that they can control, but then they can go back to touting, this is the thinnest MacBook we have ever made. And then it has all those things, and for once, maybe, just maybe, there's no compromise on power. And that would be, what a day that would be, because then we all win. The people who like the power to the people who like the minimalist, components and stuff, everybody wins. And I can forgive, not that I didn't forgive, but I can forgive Cube Max and fanless MacBooks and stuff like that, and when we can see what they can really, really do in house. And then that little tease that that Air Force One said was, this is when my guys aren't even trying, and they're just touting like that is that's big energy right there. You're just laying it out there on the table like that. It's like, this is what we're working with. Like, oh my goodness, I'm intimidated but also excited.
Right.
That's intel right now.
Yeah. I'm curious how they'll spec it. Like, do you expect them to keep around still the different RAM and storage configurations like we have today? Or do you think they'll start simplifying the lineup a lot more?
No,
I
think
depends
for
on
cost.
what device we're talking about. I saw a rumor that the 2021 MacBook Pros are going to have the whatever Apple Silicon stuff, but there's still going to be that end of this year consumer Mac, right? Like, I'm thinking still like MacBook replacement territory. Is that what the internet's still thinking?
Currently, there's a couple reports conflicting with each other. So on one end of the spectrum, we have Sonny Dickinson, who is saying, Dixon. Not Wild Nights Dickinson. I just like calling him Dickinson because TV Plus. But Sonny is saying that they're going to discontinue the MacBook Air line and basically just revive the MacBook branding, just regular MacBook. And his justification, which I thought was pretty reasonable, I don't know if I believe him, but the logic is there, is that once you start switching to Apple Silicon, the 13-inch MacBook Air and the 13-inch MacBook Pro are too similar. Because they'll both be thin, they'll both have similar processors, so it doesn't make sense to keep around both. So what they're going to have is basically like a slim bezel 14-inch regular MacBook that is built around portability but still great performance, and then the sole MacBook Pro will only be the 16-inch larger one. So it'll be like, if you want the bigger MacBook that's got some more power, that's the Pro. If you don't need a big one, just get the regular MacBook. But that's contradicting what Quo is saying, which is almost totally different. And he's saying that before the end of 2020, we'll get Apple Silicon in a 13-inch MacBook Air and a 13-inch MacBook Pro. So it's all alluding to some type of compact MacBook coming out before the end of this year, likely unveiled with the iPhones that's running Apple Silicon. What it'll be called, I don't know. How many will there be? I don't know, but that's what the current rumors are talking about now.
Appreciate the summary.
What you were asking about what it was going to be used for, so how did that impact your answer?
Yep.
I love the 15-inch MacBook or 16-inch MacBook Pro. Like, out of all the Macs I've ever had, like, that one was a beast. It had a good size screen size, and like, it didn't feel compromised in any direction. And so the 13-inch is great because it's so portable. Like, the 16-inch, that was the only thing kind of compromised on. It wasn't very portable. But I'm leaving the house much anymore these days, so it doesn't really matter. But I have a 13-inch right now, and that's nice and compact, and it just sits at my desk. So that 16-inch, they have to have some kind of spec bump, whether that's like maybe a GPU and the smaller one doesn't have a GPU, or I don't know. They have to do something there. I like the idea of having multiple Apple Silicon processors just all linked up in series, like just like they have, the 8-core GPU on the new Pros, iPad Pros. I'd love to see them sync up like 4 or 5, or maybe in the new Mac Pro you get like a modular slot that just sticks like 32 of these chips all in one.
Right.
And it's just like unlimited power.
Right.
Geekbench is just like, I can't count that high.
Yeah. You essentially have kind of like how we have A12 chip and A12X chip. Yeah. You would say the equivalent of that in the small MacBook gets the A12 and the 16-inch gets the 12X or something like that.
Sure.
What do you think, Randy?
Yeah.
You want the same on both?
I do. One, because I would go with the smaller one. And two, you can still upsell the bigger size without having to worry about processing power. The whole point is, in my opinion, especially since this is a big shift for Mac, you want to tout the power performance is across the board and no compromise. I think is a better marketing technique. And if you want the bigger, I want to put a little bit more. I like having a bigger one. I would argue, for once, you can get the bigger one, and it would be cool if you don't have to pay $300 to $500 more. That's like, hey, for you guys who always were a fan of the 16, 15-inch, now you get that, and we'll be selling it for $21.99. Boom! Oh my god! Like that would be cool, because then it's truly preference. Maybe for bigger screen, it'll go up $100 or something like that. But instead of separating it by hundreds of dollars, it would be cool to get them as close as possible. And the only deciding factor is footprint. That's it, and that would be really cool, because it shows that they're not purposely dismissing the smaller people market of like, I like having smaller devices, and it also shows that you're not compromising for the with that you're not compromising on the bigger products. That it's like one and the same. Here's what an all-encompassing Apple internal and external looks like, and you'll pay just the difference based off of screen cost and more pixels. That will, even though the pixel density would be the same, it's just, you're accommodating for more pixels at the end of the day.
Right.
And I like that vision. I think it's far-fetched. I don't think I wouldn't be surprised if that doesn't go through, but it would be cool, just so that way it's not that much different than buying an iPad. And I'm on the side of blurring the lines as much as possible, because with the younger crowd of students and kids and coming out there, I don't think they have the same issues that anybody before them would have had issues about, like, well, what's the difference between an iPad? Like, they don't have those worries. They were born into it, and they know it. They were molded by it. They know what is what and how each performs differently. And at that point, I would take the approach, ultimately, the vision-wise, I would take the approach of making it as easy as possible for the youngest generation possible, and everything else would follow suit. Especially because those kids are now, way more tech savvy than we would have ever been, like on a technical scale, just because of their education and stuff like that. Yeah, it'd be cool to just kind of mix it up. I don't like the idea of the old philosophy that let's put exclusives on the higher end this, or the higher model that, or the higher iPhone that is. I feel it's dated.
So my follow-up to that, then, if you would prefer it to just be same performance per size, is that would you have the same performance with an ARM iMac, or would a desktop have some performance gains over the smaller laptops?
And it has to, though, right? Like, people... What's the Surface Studio, I believe? It has, like, basically a laptop hardware.
Yeah, it's very, very basic specs. It's not a good...
the specs are of a laptop, and at least as far as I can tell,
like
people who want a desktop want, like, desktop performance, right? Like,
yeah.
You bought the iMac Pro because it wasn't a 21-inch iMac with a spinning hard drive, right?
It was the best, like, spec for dollar at the time I could buy, because I didn't need a laptop. I already had one, and this one was like, okay, $5,000 and you get all these amazing specs. Okay, cool, decent package.
With the
it
ARM,
was a little bit more exciting for you than that, Drew, but
yeah.
iMac Pro.
It was just the space gray. That was all.
Oh, that's all it was. I see.
I get it.
What were you gonna say, Randy?
Would an ARM MacBook by, I guess, with on the motherboard, does it immediately date the Mac Pro, or can you modulate that too?
No. Yeah.
Well, then
the Mac Pro is...
then the Mac would probably get a spec upgrade internal, like, hey, this year we're just upgrading internals for the Mac Pro. I think I think the Mac Pro would still have its use case with the stupid amount of RAM you can put into it, and even the solid state and all the things that make the Mac Pro be this still niche market of, well, we need to render 4D graphics in lifetime faster than lifetime.
I like this.
It's a rich market, but it's a small one.
Huh?
It's a rich market, but it's a small one. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why Apple went after it, I think.
And then in turn they'll up the wheels to $800 too, just to adjust for inflation.
These are Apple Silicon wheels, so we have to charge a little extra. But
they're made out of
the Mac
ceramic
Pros
this time.
Ooh, okay. What about solid gold wheels?
You know,
Apple
that is
Wheels
the
edition.
Wheels
that
edition.
Johnny Ive himself dipped.
Yeah, he dips them himself, and then
we were
they
making the perfect gold. We win.
they coat them through honey, like Krispy Kreme donuts. That's how they go through the Mac Pro wheel.
Yes.
I can't tell you the last time I've had a donut, and I am Krispy
When Randy
Kreme.
sees the Mac Pro wheels, he just donut.
I think Krispy Kreme.
I think Mac Pro is the hardest Mac people imagine transitioning to ARM. Everything else you can kind of imagine it. You're like, okay, MacBooks with the updated silicon, got it. It's performance gains, running Big Sur and everything. Okay, the iMac is getting this redesigned treatment. It's getting a bigger display, thinner bezels. Okay, I get it. But with the Mac Pro, everyone's like, wait, what? How are they going to do that? How are they going to build something that's Apple Silicon based but still modular? I thought the whole point of that was that you could customize it to make it your own. Like, how do you think they're going to phase that out? I mean, are we in agreement that will probably be the last thing to get Apple Silicon?
The Mac Pro?
Yeah, the tower, not the iMac, but the
Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, because people are going to be pretty pissed that they spent all that money on something that's dated, and
I don't know if it'll be dated, but like, do you really think Apple Silicon will be able to compete with 28 core Intel Xeon processor? Because whatever that is,
you just
we're about
put
to find
28
out.
of them together. Like that's the thing. Like, I don't know why. Maybe this isn't technically possible. Let me know on Twitter because I'm not there. But just like stitch them together. How hard can this be? Right? You got these really super powerful processors. You have unlimited space in the Mac Pro, practically for computer. And if they don't require that much thermal, then just like stick 32 of them together and see what happens. Like. And it can still be super power efficient because when you only need the one, you can just turn all the other ones off.
makes sense
I
to
don't
me.
think they're caring. I don't think they care much about power efficiency.
It'll make for a good slide
towers,
at the after they say, "Here's the new iMac, and now it only use not iMac Pro, Mac Pro, and now it only uses less power than an iPhone."
But the only power
It only
efficient
comes with a
gains
5-watt charger.
Yeah, I mean, there's no battery. All you're saving is, I guess, your power bill. But the Mac Pro already isn't.
Well,
it's
for
not pulling much
some
power in the first
industrial
place.
uses, when they have 90 of these in a big server rack, maybe that's
Oh man. Can you imagine the people that bought 90 of these for their server rack, and then the next
they're
year
so sad.
Apple's like, so we're switching to our own processors that are going to be way better. Everyone's like, well, okay.
Let's move to Mac up here.
Let's go to backup here. You know what?
Mac.
It's fine. If companies can afford to spend that much on a Mac Pro, they can afford new ones.
$5.4 million for 90 spec'd out Mac Pros. They can do that again.
I don't know who's doing that, but yeah,
Pixar? I don't know.
maybe. I feel like Pixar would have their own custom
I feel like
servers
that too,
they
yeah.
built.
They used to.
Yeah.
I think
That was
when
the
Pixar-
big thing.
Yeah, when Pixar originally started, they were trying to decide if they wanted to be a computer company or a movie company.
That's the only
and they
reason
went
why
with
Steve
movies.
Jobs bought them. He thought it was going to be a computer company. He's like, hey, wait a minute. We're making what? Oh, this is pretty cool, I guess.
There were just as big advancements in the early days of Pixar as there were with, early days of Apple with rendering and graphics technology. But they were like, let's go to Hollywood,
It actually
That's
was
kind of
the Pixar. Like, Pixar
Yeah.
was like a computer that they were trying to sell. It was.
Side
Pixar.
story, I got to visit Pixar because one of my dad's best friends used to work there as an animator.
In the Emerville
And-
studio?
Yeah, I got to check. I saw John Lasseter. I don't know if we ever talked about this.
No, pray tell. Tell me about the Steve Jobs designed and perfect.
So we didn't get to see. This was a long, long time ago. I think I was 10 or 11 years old when it happened. But
Close
they were
your mouth,
working
Nick.
on. They had just finished Toy Story 3 when I visited, and I got to see. So you can look him up. He's not working at Pixar anymore. I think he's working at a VR company now. But you can look at older Pixar films, and in the animator section, you'll see Roger Rose.
Huh.
That was my dad's best friend growing up. They were like together in the same town and the same schools and everything up through elementary and middle school. And we got to see his office, and he let us look at the server room where all their computers run off of. There was a brief moment where we were walking down a hallway for a tour, and John Lasseter was kind of walking behind us in the same direction. And we didn't say anything, but we were kind of like walking, doing this the whole time. We're like, that's him, that's him. So that was kind of weird. But it was he was talking about how surprisingly slow all the servers were. That's what Roger was saying. He was like, we have all these custom computers here, and they take forever to load. Like, it's really annoying. So I don't know. They probably have upgraded stuff since then, but yeah, it was a cool day.
Nick, go change your pants. Go change them.
Come on. I knew you
We'll
were
come
gonna
back
go
after
there,
this
Randy.
commercial break.
We watched Cars recently, and we saw him in the animated section.
Roger
But, like,
Rose.
Roger Rose did a lot of the claw animations in the Toy Story films. So
Yeah.
in Toy Story 3, when the giant claw comes down and pulls them out of the
Sure.
rubbish, he did that shot. He also did the shot with the ham pig that's like huge with
Yeah.
the laser in the
Oh,
beginning
yeah.
of Toy Story 3. He did that. He also did... there's a handful of shots where Woody is like running as the incinerator is like pushing all of the toys towards the fire. It's a dark movie.
It is.
It really is. Anyway,
Taylor did a
It's a
really good
dark
skit on
movie.
that like 4 years ago.
yeah. It's weird to think that movie's 10 years old now. But anyway, Pixar side tangent. Wow. I think Mac Pro will be to the point, the exact 2-year mark from when Tim Cook said it will take them 2 years to switch everything to Apple Silicon. I think they could do all the MacBooks, the Mac Mini, and the iMac. They could do all that within a year. I could see like a year from today an Apple Silicon iMac being out. But the Mac Pro will be that last little Intel Mac that they hold on to for the very, very last of the 2-year time mark. And then at the end, man, I'm still confused how they do it. Do you think they redesign the entire thing, or is it just internal based?
Internal.
upgrades?
So they did this before, right? The iMac
Yeah.
G4 was the same cheese grater design, and that thing was outdated within 2 years of it being announced, and like literally didn't run the latest software because it was on PowerPC, not Intel. And all they did was just switch it out to an Intel architecture. So I think they're gonna.
But there's so
do
much
that.
like big graphics cards though that won't work.
Maybe
do they
with that
do?
Rosetta 2 stuff, they can add in some overhead so they can still work with other graphics cards. Maybe.
I don't know.
I don't really know how any of this
thought-
works, so that might not
Yeah.
be a thing. Don't listen to me.
I just don't know if the design should stay if it has a completely different architecture internally, or if they're going to redesign it all over again. But almost feels like they were just too late on it because they knew there were a bunch of people asking for the modular Mac Pro, and people were disappointed with the trash can one. So they're like, okay, we're going to give you exactly what you want. But at the same time, in the other room, they're working on this big shift in architecture and CPUs. And it almost feels like those two teams weren't quite communicating. They were like, wait, so we're switching now? Wait, so what do we do with this? And they're like, oh, I don't know. You'll have to make the Mac Pro work somehow, but figure it out, guys. Good luck.
You got 2 years.
Yeah. So now that whole Mac Pro engineering team is just like, okay, might have to start all over again now, but whatever. I don't know.
What if they have Apple designed GPUs?
They could. It sounds like it. From what I've been reading, it doesn't sound like they want to keep using AMD graphics cards with ARM Mac. So I don't think that's going to stay on the higher end MacBook Pros. But I don't know. It's hard to tell. I'm curious to see how this rollout's going to go. It's kind of fascinating knowing that they only have 2 years basically to switch everything over. And I think Apple's pretty ambitious with their timelines. I don't think they're going to be late on that. I think they're going to be on top of it, switching everything over as quick as they can. Except for there's going to be at least 1 or 2 more Intel Macs, maybe this year. Hopefully not next year, because I feel like everyone's going to want to pass on them.
No, just let 2020 die with all the garbage that's been going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let it die.
I thought
Kill
that
it
was...
if you must.
Yeah, that's a weird way to announce it. What are they going to talk about if they announce an Intel-powered Mac now?
So, this is the Mac you shouldn't buy. Next slide.
I think it's going to be a site refresh.
That'd be the best way, yeah. I agree.
Just let it be quiet about it, Just let it have a quiet announcement. It's like, we don't care about you. You know we don't care about you. So just...
When it comes to performance,
we have to keep a scheduled release with this one just because of some contract agreement that, okay, well, here we go, but we don't care about it. We don't care about you. Bye-bye.
We don't care.
Better yet, hide it in the bottom of their website. Like, you have to dig for it.
Yeah.
You have to call. It's not even on the website.
It's like a Model 3 special.
Yeah, exactly. It's a special order to get the Intel-based Mac. That reminds me of something else I wanted to talk about, kind of in that same subject of performance differences. But I ran a Twitter poll, which, Nick, is a way that people can vote and let them know what they would do.
Is that how we're doing the elections this year?
Yeah, it's just going to be on Twitter.
Can you imagine?
The government's just going to put up a Twitter poll and we'll just base it off whatever the results are.
At government.
I got 6,200 votes about which iPhone people are going to get.
Oh.
And the results were very, very different from what I was anticipating.
I did vote on that one. Yeah, I remember that one.
I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I didn't get my absentee ballot.
So the largest chunk, at 43% of the votes, was iPhone 12 Pro Max.
Duh.
The most expensive, largest phone.
Duh. This is
most
the tech
people voted that.
Drew.
At second place, 26% iPhone 12 Pro, the 6.1 inch, more expensive one.
Okay.
Third place at 19% was the smaller iPhone 12, the 5.4 inch model, and at dead last at 12% was the iPhone 12 Max, which I know it's the tech community, but I just found it interesting that people voted basically the opposite, almost the exact opposite of what we expected to sell well.
Well, this is the best phone, Randy. Highly recommend people get the biggest one because bigger the better.
The most expensive.
Exactly.
But it had me thinking, maybe, like, because of the price point and because, like we talked about, I think the main reason people were buying plus-sized iPhones before was because of the camera. And they wanted to get the better camera, the better battery life. But do you guys think there's a chance that the 5.4-inch tiny iPhone 12 will actually become close, or if not the most popular model, just from the price point and the fact that there's not much hardware advantages to go with the 12 Max? If the cameras are the same, the chip is the same, the modems are the same, only difference is size. Could we see a resurgence of the small iPhone?
If you are not putting 5G on it and the price is a thing, yeah. If the only difference camera wise, because that's the first physical tangible thing people can see and experience with it. If the only change between the Pro and the regular 12 is LiDAR, I don't think that many people are going to buy into LiDAR. To tell you the truth,
no.
Not this year.
I still don't know what to use with my LiDAR chip.
That's exactly my point. You are the. I'm talking to you, Nick. You are the sample. The sample of how the iPad is going to perform and behave. And have you put some cool stuff up? Yes. Have you showcased some cool things? Yes. Do you use it daily? Has it enriched your life? No. And so it's more
have
like
I only used it the times that I've shown people I'm using it? Yes.
Yes. So gimmicky.
That's what it's good for.
I put it as a gimmick
Very
right now.
So.
The same way, at once I thought the very first iPad was a bit gimmicky for what it was, just for that iteration, and I think that's what LiDAR is now. And something cool will come down a couple of years from now. I do believe that. But this year in 2020, the year of all things bad, I don't think LiDAR is a selling point. So for me on that voting poll, if that's how it's going to play out, then I would get the 5.4. But if there is
really,
yes,
wow.
If there was something hardware specific that I think would better. If LiDAR gives me video bokeh, I'm going with the Pro.
Okay.
Okay.
That's all it would take.
Yes.
Okay. But when it comes to just ignoring the Pros for a second, if we're comparing the 6.1 inch to 5.4 inch, do you think from price alone, because there's probably, I think it's safe to assume there will be at least $100 difference between those two models. Do you think more people would put up with a very small iPhone? We haven't had an iPhone this small in a long time. This is actually...
Haha, we're back, baby.
We're back, baby. When they compare it to the dummy models, which the dummy models are accurate when it comes to size, not, aesthetics, but when it comes to the physical size, they're accurate. The 5.4-inch iPhone 12 is smaller than the recently announced SE. It's a smaller footprint than that.
One of the only things I've seen on the internet this week was Marquez's video comparing the two. And
can I just say for a moment, Marquez, hi, if you're watching this, we love you. Love your videos. Awesome content. There was so much wrong in his iPhone 12 video.
Oh. Uh-oh.
I was just, the whole time watching it, I was like, no. Whatever.
Uh-oh.
I know he's probably got contacts. He just interviewed Craig. Maybe it's in his best interest to not be super accurate. But
what happened?
Basically... there was no acknowledgement that there are 4 iPhone 12s.
Oh.
He treated it as if there were 3. He also, the dummies are not that accurate when it comes to design because they still have the 3 cameras on the back.
Yeah.
And pretty much every leak has confirmed that the Pros have LiDAR, so it won't look like this. It'll look probably more like a square 4 cameras. However it looks, I'm not sure, but it won't look like the dummies. And... he talked about I don't think he talked much about them being OLED. I don't recall that being mentioned, the fact that OLED would be standard. He also said the middle size would be 6.2 inches. I don't know where he got that number. I've never seen it leaked anywhere, but pretty much every leak I've seen so far has all agreed that it's 6.1 for the middle size. And we didn't talk much about Face ID being... the size of the notch or anything. I don't know. There's just a bunch of stuff. I haven't watched it recently, but I just remember rewatching it being like, how did you not pay attention to every single leak that there's been so far? I don't know.
Maybe he's purposely, like you said, conspiracy tinfoil hat. Maybe he's purposely deflecting and putting out decoys. Not intentionally like he's an insider for Apple, but the fact that's if Apple watches his video, which they do. And then
they definitely do.
Yeah. If they watch, he's like, he's reporting wrong information, so they're going to be really surprised when they see the real one, as opposed to reporting the right information. And Marquez knows he's reporting the right information. And then, you're going to have a pissed off Apple on your hands, and all of a sudden now they're going to be like, hey, guess what? We ran out of models this year.
We're going to give the exclusive interview of Craig to the Talos of Tech podcast next year because, Marquez, you leaks too much.
So the thing is, I think I can see that happening. I can see that, conspiracy wise, I can see that being a thing. But I feel that to go back to your original thing, I think cost is everything, and your average consumer, not the YouTuber, the actual average consumer, they see the price. Oh, $5.99. $6.99. Oh, I'm just making numbers up, but you know what I mean.
It
cheaper.
won't be that.
What's the difference? Oh, okay. Sizes are the same.
That one's bigger.
Huh? Yeah, that one's bigger. Oh,
That's
storage
the only
is the
difference.
same. Photos are the same. iOS is iOS. I just need it to work, and it's smaller, so I can finally put this thing in my pocket. I've had people complain. I remember relatively bigger people too, tall, maybe not as tall as you guys, but they're tall people, and they're like, yeah, I like the smaller one just because pockets and it's a phone. It's
one-handed.
Yeah, they're just like, I got a laptop. I don't need big thing. And they're like, all right, cool. So just a preference thing. Some people still have always loved the smaller form factor, and me being one of those people. I think the only way iPhone 12 Max will sell more is if
maybe battery.
Yeah, no, well,
I'd say that's the best argument for the 12 Max.
when they
other than
announce
screen.
it, if they show you something iOS 14 exclusive with a new form factor iPhone that gives you a better, it'd be the crappier equivalent of like, hey, you have in-app control for camera settings and stuff like that. I could see something. If they give you something for, here's why you want the bigger screen over the smaller screen. We'll give you smaller screen for both pros and regulars, but if you get the bigger one, which would still matches the iPhone 12 Pro Max or regular 12 Pro, but if you get the bigger one, if there's something that's exclusive that won't fit on such a small screen real estate, then I can see maybe making an argument. But realistically, the people who are just upgrade and buy just to buy, cost is everything. Battery matters.
Yeah.
But we've seen them really bridge the gap of the battery performances over the last couple
True.
years.
iPhone SE battery is not horrible. I mean, it's not great, but it's comparable.
It's better than iPhone 8.
It never died on me.
There you go.
It never died on me when I used it. It came close. I was ending the day at 5%, but it never died on me.
So, after watching Marquez's video, and again, there might be inaccuracies that I'm not aware of, I was actually considering, and this was for a brief moment, but it's kind of in there in the back of my head, maybe I will seriously look at the smallest iPhone Pro, the not Max one.
The
Just
12
'cause it
point.
looks-
Sorry, the 6.1 inch.
No, the 5 point something or other. The real small.
Oh, the
one.
really really small iPhone.
The really small one. That's still a Pro, right?
No,
Oh, that's not a Pro. Okay.
it's 5.4 inch and 6.1 inch for the
So
cheap
confusing.
ones, and then 6.1 and 6.7 for the pros.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I'll have to look at that small one because I haven't been using my phone the way that I used to use my phone during this whole quarantine life. I've been using my Mac for work. I've been using my iPad for entertainment, and I've been using my phone for a few random things throughout the day. And I also have the iPhone 10, and that thing is a lot more comfortable to hold. And I know I'm a big guy, but that basically means I can do the four-corner thing on the iPhone 10. So if that even smaller one, I can even easierly do the four-corner thing. Like
Easierly.
Easierly.
That's a great word.
Thank you. I just made it up. Copyright Mickey and Sweeney 2020.
Easier.
Bigly.
Bigly phone.
Anyway,
Okay,
I might
people.
consider doing the small one just because my uses of a phone have kind of shifted. Like it used
I
to
wanna
be
try it.
when I worked at an office and was out and about all day. Like my phone was my primary consumption, creation, communication device, but now it's not. It kind of sits over there so I don't get distracted most of the day.
I'm still counting on a staggered release this year. I'm still pretty sure they're going to have the 12 and 12 Max come out, and then maybe later the 12 Pro and 12 Pro Max, like a month goes by, and then they release those. If they do something like that, which I'm pretty sure they will, I would love to just switch to the 5.4-inch 12 for a little while before getting the Pro Max, just to see what it's like to use a phone that small, because that was my immediate thought process when switching to the SE, which was like, okay, this form factor is really small and compact and comfortable. It's the dated, the bezels, the home button, the Touch ID, and all that. If we were able to get the gestures, the OLED, the Face ID, all on a phone of that size, and this one's supposed to be even smaller than the SE, I was like, that'll be interesting. That'll basically be like, remember 2 years ago when everyone was talking about the SE2 and it was looked like an iPhone 5 but with all display front, and it
I would
looked
have
like
loved
an
that.
iPhone 10. That's basically what they're making. They probably saw
Which is
all of
why
that
I'm
hype.
so sold.
Yeah. They saw all of that hype around the SE2, and they're like, okay, well, that won't be an SE, but we can do, squared edges, small form factor, Face ID, notch, and gesture control. Like, I can see all that happening now. So because of the price point, you're right. Price matters, I think, first among everybody. And if there's not some big camera difference, and I think there's a decent chance that battery life won't even be that big a difference, because 814 chip will be more power friendly, and it won't have a big battery inside it because it's small, but it won't need one because of how little power the A14 chip consumes. So I could see a ton of people being like, yeah, this is enough, this is fine, I'll go smaller if it's better, and it's more pocketable, and then Androids will feel really big for everyone because all the Android flagships are like 6 inches plus.
There's something just
6 inches is average, Drew.
Average.
There's something elegant about about 6 inches that just you hold in your hand, right, Nick? Who's gonna bleep this one?
I'm 6.5. Okay.
I wonder who's gonna come in and is like, hey, I just love holding beep. It's 6 inches in the hand so comfortably. The beep. Yeah, funny. So,
it's not the length.
Stop it.
It's the size of your bezel.
It's the size of your bezel. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Woo. Gentlemen, you're making me blush. Okay. Wow. Coming back from that. I'm not even, why are you making it so hard for me to transition back? Okay. So that's what she said. Anyway. Love you. There's something elegant about a smaller phone in the sense that I think for me and there could be overlap of different communities and stuff like that, but I think for me, I obsess about design in the sense that seamless design is what I obsess about. I love seamless designs. And
keep talking, Johnny. I mean, Randy.
A seamless design is something that's integrated not only with look at you, goosebumps.
Yeah, getting tingles in my spine.
Is it still 6.1 inches for you, Nick? The phone?
I could grow a little.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Oh, like this has to get cut. All right, so
we're going back to the glass sandwich. You look like iPhone 4 days.
There's something elegant about for me. What I was getting at is that from a minimalist point, that you have to get creative, and I feel. I know I've talked about it, and we've even touched on it here. You have to, as a minimalist, you have to get creative with things, and it exercises a certain part of your brain. And Drew,
right.
you've even talked about it in a way when you start downsizing things in your office or your house. You have to get creative.
Lovely.
It's
nice.
It's nice, and that same appeal on a product that you're so intimate with. I'm using keywords, Nick. I know you like these words.
I didn't say anything.
I know. Well, that you're so intimate with every single day. There's something just captivating about it. It's easy to make a big display and throw everything in there and have all the specs that you want. And I do, from a functional standpoint, get it. But if you can give me most features that I do use daily on a smaller footprint, and it's now just as compatible, just as capable, I mean, there's an elegance to that because... Like I said, I don't think I'm going to use LiDAR, so that's, for me, it's already out the window, and I've always upset. It's the reason why I love AirPods. It's the reason why one of my favorite products is the Apple Watch. It's the exact same concept. I love those things. I appreciate my iMac. I appreciate my iPad, and those are cool products, and I do use them daily. But there's an emotional response that you get when you're wearing your watch or even AirPods that just work, and even the iPhone.
Right.
Time and time again, and I think you're going to see that creativity. I don't think people will be able to put it into words the way I'm trying to put it into words like that. But that's why people are going to gravitate towards something so small. You did all this in a small form. That's their version of saying what I just said. Because we are interested of new territories. How did you make that work? Why, Nick, who loves, bigger's always better, was his catchphrase for, last season. Like, he wants to gravitate towards that because it's awesome.
There's a little bit there. There's a little spark. We'll see if the fire smolders into something bigger, but it was a spark.
Okay.
Something bigger isn't something smaller.
Mm-hmm.
I hope not that goes against it.
A big step for small. Apple.
That is the tagline for the 12s, Drew.
They'll have all kinds of
the smallest iPhones.
Taglines.
I know, smallest. Period. iPhone. Period. Phone. Period. I don't know.
Smallest iPhone phone. There was one section that I died at when they launched the iPhone SE. There was a section where it was like, and longer battery life for, movies. Period. That's literally on the website today.
Really?
And I'm still so confused.
How dare you disrespect movies like this, Apple?
And
movies.
I'm looking at it right now. It's right next to the Elephant Queen. Up to 2.5 hours longer battery life for, movies. I'm just imagining Johnny Ive read that.
Hey, what do you think about? I forgot where I saw or heard, or I don't think. No, we didn't talk about this. But what do you guys think about the fact that they're finally Apple's the one who's caving, and therefore it's with the 4K Apple TV, and I think maybe it'll come to other hardwares down the road. What do you think about the fact that they're actually caving about giving you 4K 4K YouTube?
I think it had to do with the VP9 video codec, which is why they couldn't do 4K, was because Apple had this, I forget the official term, but it's a high efficiency codec that they wanted on Apple TV. That's why you can watch, that's why you can watch 4K and stuff on there. But YouTube is and Google is all about VP9.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason that Safari can't play 4K, but Chrome can. I didn't realize it was as simple as them just updating their tvOS to support VP9.
Kind of makes you irritated, right?
And now I'm like, wait, that was it? So
I hate Chrome.
They kept going. Yeah, I don't love Chrome because of how power hungry it is.
Yep.
And I think that's part of the issue. I think that was part of the reason Apple was so hesitant to VP9 is because I'm no expert on the subject, but from what I've heard, I believe VP9 is not as efficient as Apple's high efficiency codec, so that they wanted everyone to move to theirs because theirs was better, and Google was like, nope, VP9, that's the way it is, that's the way it's going to stay, and they didn't want to change it. So it's not that Safari physically can't play 4K video, it's just the codec that YouTube uses isn't compatible with Safari. But now seeing that Apple TV was just like, you know what, let's just do both.
Switch.
I'm kind of like, wait, you could have done that?
Yeah,
the whole time.
I would like to see 4K on more products, or at least higher than 1080.
Yeah.
Give me 1440 like we used to have on YouTube.
I believe they changed it. I'm not sure why it doesn't work for all 4K videos, but there are now. I think it has to be 4K HDR, but now with iOS 14, you can play back 4K HDR on the YouTube mobile app. But it's not any 4K video. I think it has to be HDR for some reason. There's some codec that HDR uses that Apple now supports in iOS 14, and normal 4K isn't supported yet. So
you better get on that, Drew, because I will watch your stuff in 4K HDR. That means I get 4K.
I still don't even know how to turn that on. It's so HDR is so unnecessary in my opinion. It's like the whole problem with HDR is that you have to label it HDR, otherwise no one can tell.
Yeah.
Which to me is the placebo effect, is that if you don't brand it HDR, no one notices. They just watch it.
Before I left Twitter, Drew, you posted out that YouTube video that was like 4K HDR on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, fine. I'll take a second to see what it looks like. And I was impressed. I'm not a guy for frame rates or color accuracy. It's just does it look good? Does it not? Okay. That looked good. That video.
It does, but you're looking for it. That's the thing.
Well, just the definition. Remember, Randy, when we were at the Apple store looking at drooling over the Pro Display XDR, there was such a contrast between the dark and the bright spots and just the pinpoint accuracy. And I know it's an OLED screen, which is why it was able to do that. It has the 2 million to 1 contrast ratio. Take that, Google. But the HDR was very, I don't know. I enjoyed it. It was good. I was impressed.
It's not bad.
I was impressed.
I'm not saying HDR is a bad thing. I'm just saying it's only noticeable when you're contrasting it to non-HDR.
If you went into Final Cut and you took vibrancy and just it's very bright, very vibrant.
And took the contrast and went
and you have high dynamic range with colors and contrast and stuff like that, and on the display that it felt so flat, like you can actually touch the subjects. There's no panel gap. There's not. It was just. It felt like a sticker. It felt like a moving sticker on a piece of flat surface, and
but like the sticker was like this big, and like you stick your nose up and it takes
it also
up all
helps
of your
that the
periphery.
screen was so big too that like if you had a pro display XDR, etc., but this size, it's not. I mean, it becomes
like
a bit
regular
gimmicky.
movie theater and IMAX. That's the difference.
Yeah, I liked it. I don't like the cost of it. I can appreciate for what I can appreciate.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
it's noticeable side by side, but after a while, it's just
I can appreciate it for the art that it is. It's not the best use of my money.
Really?
No.
You need to get that
I think it's
nanotexture
like-
display for $1,000 though.
Say again?
Maybe
You need to get the nanotexture display. For
the
$1,000.
nano texture that has to be cleaned with the skin of a bunny. You know?
The skin of a bunny.
It's like there's a special cloth that they have to use on it that other cloths won't work or something. It's like
skin of a
chinchilla
bunny.
fur or something.
Has to
You
be
have to
cleaned
move
with
it
a
at
baby
precisely
puppy.
like 0.001 miles per hour when you're wiping it. It can't go too fast. You have to like wiping it down. But I think it's helpful
That's
for
why
like
we need touchscreen
photographers.
IMAX.
Maybe people working on like feature films that will be seen on theater screens, but for YouTube, it's totally overkill because people are watching on their phone. And for, I think what most people use those screens for, it's overkill. But it sounds like Mini LED is coming to all Macs next year. They're going to bring it to the small MacBooks, the big MacBooks. I hope that doesn't come with a huge price jump, but I think we'll be seeing less and less LCD as the years go on anyway, because there's no LCD iPhone 12 this year. There was the SE, but honestly, I think I've said this before. I think people over-exaggerate the colors in how noticeable that is, because to me, refresh rate is far more noticeable than color accuracy. And I wouldn't mind LCD iPhone if it was 120 hertz. It's like, I would get that. I'd be on board with that. Like, okay, you don't have true like dark inky blacks, but it's 120 hertz. I'd be like, cool, whatever. I've done LCD before many times, and I don't notice the like, oh, the pixel's not all the way off. Like, I don't. If I'm looking for it, yes, but I'm never naturally looking for it. So
For me, it's the difference between the edge of the device and the screen of the device. That's kind of a stupid way to say it, but like on an LCD, when I'm watching, say like a cinematic movie, and they have the stupid black bars because cinema needs to be in whatever by whatever and can't be 16 by 9 for whatever stupid reasons. On like an LCD device on my iPad, you see the big chonk black bars at the top and the big chonk black bars at the bottom, but they're still lit up and they're like kind of more in your face. They don't just disappear. But on an OLED or mini LED, like it just vanishes. And when you're sitting in a dark room, you don't even notice it.
I just can't enjoy movies on my phone anymore.
I can.
I feel like
It's perfect. It's like
with the invention of the television and the existence of the iPad, I just, even on an OLED display, I feel like the notch is always there, and now I have to pinch out, and I still see the notch, and I'm like, even on screens that don't have a notch, like the One Plus or it's like now it curves over the edge, and now it bleeds over this side, and it's just too many options opposed to just TV on. We're watching it. Boom. I don't even think about it.
For me, it's all about audio. I don't like the audio coming out of the speakers.
well, you should
Yeah,
try the
I would
spatial
watch-
audio on your AirPods Pro.
I'd watch YouTube videos on my phone, no problem. But like an hour-long thing, no, I would not just sit down.
So you don't watch our
Watch.
hour-long podcast on YouTube on your phone? You sit down and watch
No,
them on
I'd
your
use
TV?
the audio format. That way I can do other things.
I see.
You
use Pip.
use the phone while
That's
I'm
definitely
listening.
in YouTube.
That's what most people are doing anyway.
Right. I'm going to make a weird face and no one's going to know what's going on.
That's what I see. I mean, we forget they call the 11 Pro series XDR displays.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
they've got that contrast ratio. They've got that dynamic range, the extreme. So there's not much further they can go than extreme. I'm not really sure where they go next after that.
Extremer.
extremer DR.
Maximum overdrive.
Maximum overdrive. Oh, this was a small thing I wanted to ask you about. Did you guys hear about 4K at 240 FPS?
Yes! Bring it on!
That's pretty much... I know everyone's thinking...
But bring it on!
Everyone's thinking that's only for slow mode. Then there's me, who's like, what if we just vlogged at 120 FPS or 240 FPS? And because the iPhone might have 120 hertz display, you can view it in all of its 120 FPS glory. I know. That's not going to happen. That would be cool. I'd get on board that train.
You're already on board that train.
Yeah. If only YouTube supported it or something. That would be
Do you
nice.
think Apple will drop a 8K camera lens?
Not this year.
No.
Eventually, yes. I think.
Well,
4K.
Samsung did it first.
Yeah. Apple will do it when they can do it reasonably. Samsung did it without thinking it through because I tried the 8K camera and it was complete garbage. And Apple would do it if they could do it at like 30 FPS with autofocus and it works normally. Eventually, just because they're going to need reasons to show off their new silicon chips. They're going to quickly run out of benefits. They're going to quickly run out of reasons.
Cool
like
game. See, look at the graphics.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I agree that
LiDAR.
8K alone is pretty pointless for most video. But 8K on a phone is even more pointless. But I think the same argument can be made with 4K. Just less
Pointless.
less of an extreme of uselessness. The number of people that need to record 4K on their phone, yes, it's very small, but the silicon allows them to do it, so why not have the option? Eventually we'll reach that point with 8K. I don't think it's a high priority. If anything, it's a very... The biggest issue with 8K, I don't think, is the camera sensor. It's more so the storage on the phone. Letting people record at that high a bit rate and fill up their phone that fast. It'd probably be a lot easier to do with 128 gig by default or higher. Not
Literally
so much
5
64.
seconds of video in 8K at 120.
Like, oh, it's full. Never mind. Eventually they'll get there. Maybe that'll be a iPhone 13, next year feature because if it's true, because I'm hearing leakers go back and forth about 120 hertz. I still say it as we don't know. What I've learned from all the leakers talking about 120 hertz is they still don't know what they're talking about. So it might come out this year on the Pro iPhones, and if it does, next year's iPhones are going to be so dang minor. They're going to be so dang small when it comes to upgrades that they're going to need some overkill feature like 8K for people to feel justified. But yeah, it's the number of people that can actually view that is just shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. 4K is already not standard for most content viewing, so pushing it to 8, oh god.
How many K is the
Too
iPad
much.
display?
It's not an exact. It's like 2.7 or something. Not quite 3, not quite 2. So it's high enough. I don't think the iPad needs more pixels. I think from an average viewing distance.
Oh yes, it does.
You're just asking for your battery to be fried.
I'll leave it plugged in. So I was watching a movie last night on Apple TV Plus. First time I'd done that in a while. That Tom Hanks Greyhound. Highly recommend.
I heard he was heartbroken that it was coming out on TV Plus.
He was?
Yeah. He said there is a noticeable loss of audio and video quality. I don't know. I felt kind of weird about that. I couldn't tell if he was talking about like Blu-ray versus streaming or if he was talking about movie theater, in which case I'm like, well, Tom, we can't go to the movie theaters right now.
I'm not 86 feet tall in this. I'm a half an inch.
And also, like, go ahead. Talk about Greyhound. I'll go off.
Yeah, it was a really good story. I'm always into World War II stuff. Like, that's my favorite history period. And
I want to watch it.
It was really good, but I would recommend downloading it first because I started it and I don't know what he was talking about because I'm not on Twitter, but I did notice the very beginning. I have all the storage on my iPad, so a lot of times I'll download a movie like before I'll start watching it, so it's a little bit higher quality because I have the storage. And I don't care, but I started watching it, and there's a lot of like ocean scenes where like it's kind of gray fog and like dark gray ocean, and I don't know if it's the compression or something, but like it's really blocky and it looks like a bad YouTube video that's been compressed, like that Marquez video. And so about 3 minutes in, I just stopped it and downloaded the video, and I watched it again, and I had it, up on my chest, and I was watching it, and it was very immersive, and I was like, I can still see pixels. I want more pixels on my iPad next year.
Did it look better after you downloaded it?
It did. It looked a lot better.
Okay.
It looked a lot better.
Well, there's your fix, Tom.
Yeah,
just download the movie first.
Just download it. I mean, it's easy. But anyway, the story, probably the best TV Plus movie I've because I like the genre.
Oh, cool.
And the graphics were pretty impressive too. There were a lot of inaccuracies that I caught, but oh well.
I want to watch it, but I think directors and actors don't have a great grasp on the theater experience because they watch all these movies at red carpet premieres and like private theaters, and everyone's dead silent and walks in, they're very quiet, and they watch the experience. And I've had my fair share of like great movie theater experiences, but I absolutely know why less and less people are going to the movies, and acting like everyone needs to see this at the theater when I've gone to the theater and had like people shoveling popcorn with their hands the whole time, and people talking and leaning, squeaking chairs, and people getting in and out. I gotta use the bathroom, and saying, "No, we need this type of movie to come out in the theater to be truly experienced." I'm like, you guys don't get to control every theater. You don't know what that is. For some of us, that's horrible. Yeah. So, and we can, at home, we can pause it. We can take our time. We can watch it when we feel like it. We can use the restroom and not miss anything.
You don't have to pay $8 for a bag of popcorn?
Yeah, one movie ticket now can pay for 30 days of, Netflix, or 60 days of Disney Plus, and it's just so much more convenient that there's times where the movie theater experience can be great, but not for most things. I feel like a movie like Greyhound I would easily watch on TV Plus, but I would not go out to the theater to see.
No.
That kind of thing. So when I hear directors and actors talk about like, oh, I hate that we're moving towards streaming, I'm just like, you can't control every theater experience. It is totally different for what it could be for the red carpet or the IMAX premiere, because we all have to get together in these big rooms, and now with the pandemic going around, it just makes more and more sense. Like, yeah, just push stuff on streaming sites. Just move on. This is the way the world's going. I don't know. That's my Gen Z approach, I guess.
What do you think,
I'm not into the theater thing.
Do you enjoy the theater experience? The theater. something, the theater.
I've had good ones.
People try to sell the, Adobe Sound, surround sound, IMAX.
Theoretically, this also has Dolby Sound.
What's this?
Yeah, we can get spatial audio on our AirPods too. So.
Well, there's a little badge: 4K, Dolby Vision, Dolby Atmos.
What's
HDR.
this? The iPad?
The Greyhound. The Greyhound movie. I'm like,
it checks all the boxes.
Am I being? How do you watch that? Do you have to get an Apple TV with some Samsung $8,000?
Apple TV supports the Dolby audio stuff, so if you have the surround system, it'll work.
It sounded pretty good on my AirPods.
Yeah, just say that's the way of the future. That's where things are going. I mean, there have been movies I've gone to the theater and they were awesome, particularly. Like occasionally a Star Wars or a Marvel, like Avengers Endgame was amazing in the theater.
Can't
because
watch that on your phone.
The audience was all into it. They laughed at all the jokes. They cheered at all the cool moments.
And no one got the Pixar reference. I was the only one barfing in the entire theater.
Right, but the
5 years in the future,
than,
you're not going to be using a Pixel 3, please.
No, not in 5 years, especially. But not every movie is going to be a big event like that. Yeah. So I think going to the theater has to be less and less common as time goes on, especially now with the virus and everything. So I'm just like, you know what? The better you can make content to be streamed at home, the healthier everyone can be. And in my opinion, I've had great, fantastic movie experiences in my own living room. I don't need the big state. I don't need the big screen and a crowd full of people that are coughing and eating to have the true experience. But
that's just
one man's opinion. I can live without the theater.
It's a dying business model.
When was the last time you guys went to the theater?
Endgame?
Let me tell you.
Was it
Wait.
Star Wars?
Star Wars? Did Star Wars come after Endgame? Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Star Wars.
that was last year,
Star Wars. Yeah.
and there's not another Star Wars coming out. I don't know if I'm gonna see Black Widow in the theater. That feels like something I'd rather just watch on Disney Plus at this point.
Yeah. I'm trying to
man.
remember.
It's been that long.
Couldn't
I
have
feel
been
like this is the
Star
new
Wars.
norm. I think we're just going to stop going to the theater more and more as time goes on. There's just not like it's too expensive. You're right. It's a dated business model.
It is. The concessions is where the theaters make their movies anyway, or their money anyway. So it's like it's that's what it is now, because the way theaters have their business model or their agreements with studios is opening weeks. Studios get most of that revenue back to them, and then the theaters can get afterwards.
Star Wars was the last movie I saw in a movie theater. Wow.
Same.
Before that, Fast and Furious, Spider-Man, Lion King. My goodness. I haven't been to the theater in a long time.
Do you guys remember Movie Pass?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was such a
That was so 2014.
that was such a hilarious business model they took. I remember hearing about Movie Pass. They were like, $10 a month, you can watch as many movies as you want. And I was like, how do they make money off that, though? 1 year later, so we're out of money. It was like my first reaction to the whole business model was, that's not going to work. And that's exactly what
You
happened.
should go to
It didn't
Shark
work.
Tank, Drew. You should be a shark in the Shark Tank.
You were counting on people not using the subscription. I think that's a big fundamental flaw, is assuming people are going to sign up and then not use your service. It's not a good idea. It's not a good pitch. Hopefully, people sign up and then just don't use it and keep paying for it. That'll work. That'll work fine. I mean, I guess is that kind of the Apple Music approach? Is they're hoping you don't
know. I'm not on it anymore.
use $10 a month worth of music?
I do use it though. I play playlists all the time.
Yeah. So that business model is working. So yeah, Movie Pass though is like only people who signed up for it were people that went to the theater like 2 to 3 times a month. So they were quickly running out of ways to generate an actual profit other than just burn through cash. Yeah, I don't. It's a funny world we live in of subscriptions as things are growing more and more. I don't think Apple Arcade is doing well, by the way.
Oh no, the amount that they're marketing it has to mean that it's not doing super hot.
I saw they started letting people have a second month of free trial, which
that sounds
must be a. I don't think that's a good sign. I don't think that could be a good sign. And I also heard they were taking off a bunch of games from Arcade because they were not engaging enough or something. They weren't like
really
keeping enough people on the service, so they got rid of a bunch of apps. And I think the second free trial was for people to be like, hey, look, we got more games now. Try the new games. It's not the same game library as before. Try out the new stuff. So I guess Apple doesn't have to disclose how those services are doing. They're not required to, because they can bundle all their services in one revenue stream, right? They can, when they're reporting their earnings report, they can just say services. So
but I think
we
at some
don't
point
get to know.
Tim wants to get up on stage and be like, so we introduced some services how many years ago. This is how many Apple Card users we have. 10 million or whatever, some big number. This is how many, News Plus services we have, -5. And this is how many. They want to be able to be proud about the numbers, but they can't.
Who was it? New York Times, I think, backed out of all of News Plus.
Oh wow,
which was a pretty big one.
They just the news, so I wouldn't know.
They severed all their offers with News Plus, which I think might have a domino effect in the long term. That might cause more people to pull out, and making it less and less useful. But Apple Card finally got a web option, and now
are you paying your bill on the web now, Drew?
No, I'm not.
You get
but we
on
can
the
track
internet
it through
with your modem and your mouse, and you click the button and you type in https://
every time.
apple.com/Apple Card.
I can finally link it with the Mint tracking, finance tracking
yay.
app now.
Oh,
so
fun.
it took them a year, but I can finally do it. So we can finally watch all of our credit cards from the Mint app. Although it doesn't give individual transactions yet. So
What?
they're close, but
Oh.
you can
Have they-
only see your balance on the web. You can't see the actual transactions you've made.
Have they reported
I hope
to the
they-
bureaus yet? Is the
I
Apple
think
Card
2,
on your
but not-
credit file?
No, not all 3. I think they report to 2, but not
Okay.
the. I think it's Equifax or someone.
Equifax,
I forget.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know.
they haven't reported to all 3, which I find bizarre because we're coming up on a year old now with the Apple Card, and I feel like they have to report to all 3.
Long?
Yeah, we're coming up. We're very close to a year since we bought this house, so
Wow.
it's creeping up on us. But anyway, closing thoughts, gents.
I'm
power's
enjoying
dead.
not being on Twitter. Everyone should delete Twitter.
You cheated. You tweeted a video.
Oh my gosh.
That doesn't count.
Sure.
All right. Have a good week, everyone. Take
Bye.
care. Bye bye.